Dr. Jeffrey D. Morris, who wrote Just Live, Simply Take the Next Breath. And hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Would you like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself first? Introduce us to you.
Well, I'm originally from Southern Illinois. Grew up in a really small town, and was, I guess, became a high school math teacher in the early 90s. So my background is education. I worked as a high school assistant principal for about 15 years. And in 2010, I left my job in education and I started working as a suicide prevention trainer. And I've been doing that for
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so that's basically my background. I'm an educator by trade. And so.
Yeah. But then, so there was, you just passed an anniversary of your first attempt at taking your own life, right?
Yep. So, well, actually, I think the anniversary is coming up in about 4 days. The first time I attempted.
Is it? Okay. Because you know why I've got Columbus Day, and we just had it yesterday. Well, it's Indigenous People Day now. I don't know. You know, everything's changing. So yeah, so that's why I'm thinking that's the anniversary, but it's around the same time. And so why don't you tell them like where you were in that in that part of your life, because you were seemingly, I guess, on the outside, maybe people thought you had it all, right? You had a great job, you had the wife, you had the kids, and
right. Yeah, I think most people. The first time that I attempted to take my own life was was in 1997. The first time where anybody knew that it happened, and that I was in the fall of 2002, and that's when I told I had to be taken to the hospital, and I told the staff at the hospital and then my wife at the time, and that I attempted to take my own life. And when it came out that I had done that, I think people were shocked because they thought that I had like the fairy tale life. I mean, I was married with 2 kids and had a great job and a nice house and a swimming pool and all that stuff. So people looked at my life and thought that, things were about as good as it could get, and it couldn't have been. It was the polar opposite of that.
Right. And now your mom and dad wrote a little forward in the book, right? And your mom said, she never really noticed that you struggled with anything, but that you became a little more isolated in middle school and high school, spent a little more alone time. And so tell us about that. When did you start feeling this depression? You were diagnosed with bipolar, right? As bipolar?
So I was diagnosed in 2000 as having bipolar 2. And for those of you who don't know what that is, so bipolar is when somebody has the high highs, the manic, and the low lows, the depression, so it goes up and down. Bipolar 2 is more just a depression. There is some mania involved, but it's not nearly as noticeable or as the mania isn't as severe or subtle. But yeah, my mom would have talked about how when I was younger, and I always knew I was a pretty quiet kid, and I would stay to myself quite a bit, and so I think I started dealing with some depression when I was in junior high school, early high school, when I was 13 or 14 years old, whenever I first remember dealing with some of this.
Right. And I mean, at that age, it is normal for a lot of kids to go through things. So, she probably thought, okay, it's just normal stuff. She didn't think that she wasn't raising red flags for her.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I just think they thought I was a quiet kid, and I didn't think anything about it. I just thought this is the way I am. And so there was no no red flags that went up at that time.
Okay, and then so throughout college, when you got married, like, did you just experience, like, was there something that was, you say, triggering to the effect that, wow, that I just can't cope anymore? Like, I don't think it's going to get better. Is there something that
So
meant?
I think as I got older, and one of the things that I learned when I went through counseling was that as you get older, bipolar can get progressively worse. And so I think there wasn't any one thing that kind of brought this to light, but it's just as I was moving through my life, my bipolar was just getting progressively worse, and up to the point where I attempted to take my own life in 1997, and in 2000 I finally went and sought help through a counselor, and that's when I was diagnosed by her as having this. But I don't think there was any one event that really kind of brought it to light. It was just that I finally reached out for help in 2000, and somebody put a name to what I actually had, and it made sense.
Right. And so is it that when you got to those, because you did it, how many times total did you try to take your life?
6.
6, okay. And each time, like, did it feel like you were over, like, I know some people say they feel like things are insurmountable, they can't get past it. It's overwhelming what, they just can't. Is it, were you consumed with feelings like that? Or?
So it's interesting because I've told people that I know that the pain I was feeling, so the reason that people die by taking their own life is because they just don't know how to, they're in so much pain and they don't know what else to do. I mean, they're trying to end pain.
They're trying to end the pain, yeah.
And so I really I can't remember. I tell people that I can't remember how bad I felt, but I know I felt so much pain, and I just got to the point where I just didn't know what else to do anymore, and I was just tired of dealing with the pain. It was overwhelming, and so it wasn't any one thing that caused me to try to take my own life. But it just got to be to the point where I just felt like I just couldn't do it anymore, and I just wanted the pain to go away.
And what helped you the most? I mean, what would you tell? Like, what helped you the most to get out of that?
So I think the thing that helped me more than anything was one of the big mistakes I make, and I talk about this in the book, one of the big mistakes I made early in dealing with this was I would I would be depressed, go through a depressive episode, and I would start to come out of it, and I would tell myself, I would think to myself, I'm not going to let myself feel depressed anymore, and I don't have that control. And so probably in about 2015 or 16, I began to realize that what I needed to do was just accept the fact that this was going to happen, and not get too worked up about it. So I changed the way that I deal with my depression, and now what I do is when I feel a depressive episode coming on, I just kind of own it, and I'm like, this is just part of who I am. I've been through this hundreds of times. I'll make it through it, and it'll be fine. And so I don't have when I feel a depression coming on, I don't have any dread about it. It's just like, Jeff, this will last a couple of days, 3 days, 4 days, however long, and then you'll get through it. And once you make it through it, you'll be fine again. And so I stopped trying to prevent the depression from happening, and now I just kind of go with the flow, and it's just, I know the things I can do to help me get through it, and it happens to me about once every month, every couple of months. I go through a little episode like that, and it's not a big deal even.
And I don't know if it's your case that you say, since it's like you know that you've gone through it, and you maybe can even chart it. A lot of people can start taking, having more awareness of when certain moods happen, and sometimes they're cyclical. And if they know that, like it's almost like you're saying, they can say, okay, look, I had this same thoughts last month or 2 months ago, and this is what it is. And I mean, because I know a lot of people that get weird thoughts, like even PMS thoughts. And if you could say it, as I know, like that you're more apt to have these weird thoughts or feelings at that time. And if you could say, oh, look, it happened last month and it happened the month before, I'm going to make it through. It's just goofy thoughts. And then that you go through it. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because I know that helps a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny that you mentioned PMS, because I jokingly tell people that my depressive cycles is kind of like a menstrual cycle. It happens cyclical for me, and so it happens to I've journaled before, and I mean, it's been a while since I've done it, but I used to journal about what I've been through, and I think it happens to me, about every 4 to 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, it'll come about, and it'll last. Sometimes it lasts a couple of days, sometimes might be a little longer, but I'm to a point now where it's just kind of no big deal anymore, and it's just something that I know is going to happen. I don't worry about when it's going to come about, because I just know it'll happen again sometime, and I'll make it through it.
Yeah, because I know I have friends that believe heavily that the moon phases and stuff, it's all, brings about different emotions and stuff. So yeah, journaling I think is a great idea, because if you have it down there, it's something to look back on. Oh yeah, look, I was feeling this way. As we get older, we sometimes forget more things, and think, well, why is this happening? But if you can look back on a journal, journals are great. I mean, to really tell you or remind you of what you were feeling. Oh, look, you got through that. Oh, look, you had those same feelings, last month. I think it's a great tool, journaling, if you can, But so what other things do you recommend? I mean, you see a counselor regularly?
I do not. I've seen a counselor before. That's actually where I started this kind of getting the help I needed, was with a counselor. And then after my first attempt to take my own life, I started working with a psychiatrist. But counselors are excellent. For me, it's more of it's more of a chemical issue. It's kind of just the way I'm wired, so medication is more helpful for me. Counseling, is very helpful for other people. In fact, I saw a counselor for a little bit last year. Just wanted to give it a try again, but like I said, for me, it's more about medication and self-awareness and working through my own issues myself. But I strongly encourage people, there are lots of protective factors that people can access, like having good people around you, having a good support system. Some people find going to church is helpful, religion, and even simple things like working out and exercising and those kinds of things. That's something I do, try to do regularly. So, there's lots of things that people can do that help them through a depressive episode.
Right, and then you talk about, I'm looking in here, some of the myths of taking your own life. And one myth you say is that it's one that cowards use. Another one says that it's an act of aggression, anger, or revenge, or that it's selfish, or that most leave a note if they do that, and they don't make future plans. So, I mean, I guess I've heard like a lot of these myths too, where they say, "Oh, be careful, so and so's giving away all of these things that are precious to them," right? And they're like, "Why are they doing that?" Or they're going through photographs and they're connecting with people. So there's lots of things that people think maybe a warning sign, a red flag that someone is considering that, but there's nothing, I mean, there's no nothing set in stone, right? With all this stuff.
I mean, there are things that people think about suicide that, when somebody takes their own life that aren't true, like you mentioned. One of the big myths that people think is factual is like if you suspect somebody is struggling and thinking about taking their own life, that you shouldn't talk to them about it. That like they're afraid that if you bring it up to them that's gonna give them the idea. And that's actually the opposite is true. If you suspect somebody is struggling to the point that they're having thoughts of taking their own life, one of the first things you want to do is talk to them about it. Get them talking. But there's a lot of misinformation out there about people wanting to take their own life and people being really depressed. And that's one of the things I felt like it was important to talk about in the book, because we want to make sure that there's factual information out there for people, and that they're dealing with and there's no another piece of misinformation is that people who are thinking about taking their own life might show some signs just to get attention, and that's not the case very often. I'd say less than 1% of people who show warning signs of taking their own life are doing it just for attention. I've seen it happen once in my life where I thought somebody was doing it just strictly for attention, but vast majority of the time when people are showing warning signs, that they're actually, it's a cry for help.
Right. I'd say things like, "Oh, people that do that don't talk about it. People that do that wouldn't say it." Right. And no, that's not true. It's like that person may just struggling with just wanting this, whatever they're going through, to just stop. And you can't just say, "Oh, you discount something. Oh yeah, well they're talking about it because they're not going to do it. People that do it don't talk about it." Right. Or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, you just talk about it. And so you say like some things, and they're similar for like things that you shouldn't say to somebody that's grieving, but so you give some examples of what not to say and what to say to a person. Let me see if I have it right here. What you can say to help someone, what you should not say. So to help someone, you could say, "I'm here for you." Don't say, "Just get over it." If they could do that, they would, right? And it sounds easy, but there are people that say, when you read that, you say, "Oh, that sounds ridiculous." But did people say those things, right?
No, absolutely. I've had people say them to me, something like, I had someone that I'm very close to, and I was really depressed, and they were like, "Jeff, you need to be tougher." And, that was just they couldn't have said anything worse to me, because, I feel like I've been through a lot, and that I'm reasonably tough when it comes to going through this stuff. And what I tell people is really the most important thing it really isn't as important what you say to somebody as the most important thing you can do with someone who is struggling is to be a good listener. Let them talk. Let them talk about what they're going through. You don't even have to really solve their problem. But the example I give is to think about a time that you've gone through something challenging, and that you were dealing with a difficult situation, and just simply being able to talk about it to somebody helped you feel better. It didn't solve the problem, it didn't, fix it, but it allowed you to feel better simply by getting it off your chest and opening up about it. And that's the best way to get that's the starting point, is getting people who are struggling with mental illness to open up and talk about what they're going through.
Right, and a lot of times when you talk about something, when you just sit with it by yourself, you think you're the only one. And then when you talk about it, you find out sometimes, oh my gosh, that person has the same thing, or their brother or their sister. And that's the wonderful thing about the internet, because I think that, like Google, like people thought they were struggling. It could be anything, okay? There's somebody else that has that. And I think it's really helped people feel not so alone or stuck in things if they tend to go and, look that up and see, am I the only one that struggles with this thought or that thought, or, this feeling? They see that they're not alone. And that's important.
Absolutely. And that was one of the important things that I experienced the first time that I went to group therapy. Was I thought, I was one of the few people dealing with this. And when I was able to go into a group setting and talk with other people who were going through what I was going through, it was very helpful, not only not just talk about what I was going through, but that other people were going through even more difficult things than I was. And so that was very helpful. And like I said, I find now that there's two kinds of people who have dealt with serious mental illness and thoughts of taking their own life as individuals, or people who know somebody who has gone through something like that, somebody close to them. And so I seldom, I can't remember the last time I talked to somebody who, when they hear about what I've been through, or we talk about, this topic, that they would say to me something like, I've never known anybody who's experienced that.
Right.
Just about everybody knows someone who has gone through something like this.
Right, and we're becoming more open about mental illness, thankfully. It's not such a stigma, but it still is in some aspects, right? And then another thing, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned the stigma, and that's one of the things that I think is changing for the positive is I find that there is almost, I have a hard time finding anybody who stigmatizes mental illness anymore. 20 years ago, I think there was a much more common for people to look at someone like me and think that there was something, it was a weakness or something like that. And now I think that for the most part, when people talk to me about, my book and what they've seen that I've talked about, it usually brings them to tell me their story, or a story about somebody they're close to. And so we're moving in the right direction when it comes to that and the stigma attached to mental illness.
Right, yeah, I agree on that. And so you say, okay, so what you can say, you are important to me, I'm going to help you through this, not like you just said, just be tougher, or nobody said life is fair. And then tell me why you are feeling bad, and not to say, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Another one will say, I will go with you to get help. That's a good thing to say. Another that you should not say is, I know how you feel. I have been depressed myself. Now, somebody might say, well, why is that bad? Because I'm relating to the person, but I imagine because you're saying you don't know how someone else feels, and to say you know how they feel is...
reason, and that one's kind of a gray area, because I think it's okay to try to relate to somebody, but what you don't want to do is if you're talking to somebody who's feeling depressed, turn it around and make it about yourself.
Right.
And be like, oh, you think you're depressed, my situation is a lot worse than yours.
That's a one-upper, right? We all know a one-upper, right? Whatever you say, oh, come on, you broke one leg, I broke two, and I fell out of a tree, and I broke my spine too, and we know the one-uppers, but...
About not wanting to make light or make it about, as you said, a one-upper, where, oh, my situation's a lot worse than yours, why are you so depressed,
Right.
I'm the one depressed. And so that's really what that's about.
Yeah. And I think, they might have the best of intentions to try to relate to the person. So it's kind of like you said, it is a gray area, because you want to relate to them and want them to know they're not alone, but you don't want to turn around and just start talking about yourself, right? Okay, and then to say nothing, just listen, and don't make it about you. So just listen, and I mean, it's the same thing. Like sometimes people say, I don't know what to say to that person. I don't know. Just say, look, you could say that. I'm not sure what to say to you, but I'm here to listen.
One of the most important things that happened to me was probably about a decade ago. I was talking to my mom. I was at her house, and we were in the kitchen chatting, and I don't know if I was going through a really tough time or not, but she said something to the effect of, Jeff, she said, I have no idea what you feel like whenever you're feeling bad, and I don't know what to do, but I can listen. Mm-hmm. You could talk to me about anything, and that really, really stuck with me. And that's why I go back to telling people that I don't think it's so much what you say, is that you let them talk, and just reassure them that even though you may not be able to fix whatever they're going through immediately, that you're going to be there for them, and that you're going to try to help them through it in any way, and find someone who can help them. That it's and again, it's just that old story that sometimes just being able to talk about something helps get that, helps reduce that stress levels and depression, and it may not fix it, but it's a good start on the road to feeling better.
Right, because sometimes when you speak something, it takes its power away, right? When then you're struggling with it in your head, you say it and it's not so bad. A lot of people have a big buildup, like, oh my gosh, I have to say something that's going to be terrible. They're going to think this. People are going to think this about me. And then you find out, right? No, it's not. It takes away some of the power of struggling alone with those thoughts. And you find out that you're not alone usually. There's other people. And that's really big, is just to find out, I think, that you're not struggling alone. And so it's huge. I think your book it's short and it's to the point, and I think it'll give people ideas whether they're dealing with someone in their life or they are the person that's having these thoughts, right?
Right.
Would you say, what spurred you to write this book?
So I had thought about wanting to write a book, something like this, for about the last decade, because I'd been teaching suicide prevention, and I was like, I'd really like to do something that can really get out to a lot of people, but I really didn't have the idea. And then I am finishing my dissertation, and so I had that in place. I've done a lot of research on suicide prevention. I've learned a lot in the last decade or so with the work I've done, and the idea of just telling my story about what I've been through with depression and trying to take my own life and so forth. I mean, I was like, the story may be of interest to people, but it really doesn't help people. And because if I tell them what I've been through, that's they may be interested in it, but it doesn't help anybody. And then I got the idea that maybe over the last decade or so, I've really gotten a lot better at dealing with how to deal with my depression and when I feel bad. And I thought that could help somebody. And so that just came about that I decided to write the book and include, suicide prevention as a topic, and how to, what to say, what not to say to somebody, some facts and myths about suicide. And then, the things that I've done over the last decade that have helped me feel better. And the whole idea, the motivation for me was, I'm from a small town. A lot of small towns don't have a lot of resources when it comes to like mental health professionals, and the town I grew up in, we had a doctor, but we didn't have a psychiatrist, we didn't have a counselor. You're going to drive 30, 45 minutes to access those resources. And so I wanted to just try to do something to help communities like that. And I thought this book might be helpful. And so that's really where the idea came about.
Right. Oh, that's good. And just the title, just simply take the next breath, just live. Right. So that's a really important message. Just live, because, sometimes it is, you just have to live breath to breath, right? Just take the next breath. We catastrophize things. We could, think so far in the future. Well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Just take the next breath. You hear about day by day. Sometimes it's minute by minute, right? Second by second, whatever it takes.
And I have to give credit to my publisher, Tammy Corwin. She's the person who came up with the title, and many people have commented on it. So I wish I could take credit for that. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right about the title of the book. And sometimes when you're in a tough situation or you're going through a bad time, you're just, and I do this myself when I'm feeling bad. It's just I just want to get through the day. I just want to do my best, and because I know I'm going to feel better in a couple of days. On this particular day, I'm just going to do what I got to do to just kind of get through the day, and that's sometimes the best you can do. But when I do that, I know that eventually I'm going to feel better. I mean, it's just I'm doing it for a day or two or three or however long, but just simply take the next, simply breathe, and that's it.
Yeah, and sometimes like that, I always say, the darkest hour is right before dawn.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's just like, no matter how bad it feels, it can change. It can change in a second. It can change in a minute. And it's happened for us a lot. And I think that's why I like journaling. If we journal and we see, oh gosh, I thought, this was so dark at this time, and then look how things got better. And things do cycle. I mean, they do. Our feelings, our emotions, and all kinds of stuff happens like that. But so do you have anything else you'd like to add? I do have the link to your book I've been putting it in the chat, and it is in the video description, because we have a lot of people all over the world that watch us. They watch us at different times, and they come back and watch a lot on the replay. So that those links are in the video description and in the chat. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think you covered everything. I think we've I think the most important thing is that people just have to continue to work towards feeling better whenever things are going tough. And if you have somebody that you think is struggling, talk to them about it. Right. Get them to open up.
Yeah, don't be afraid, right? Don't say, oh gosh, if I talk to them about it, I might think that, oh wow, I'm really depressed. No, it's just talk to them and be there to listen. Be a good listener is really important. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming, and I appreciated our talk, and come back anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. So I will see you a little later. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope that you could take something away from that positive, and just breathe, right? Take the next breath. That's all we have to worry about. All right, everybody. I will talk to you later. Love you guys. God bless. Prayers, and I'll see you in a little bit. I have to get in here and end the live. That would be good if I do that, right? For some reason, I'm not in my studio. So you can hear a few more, a little bit about me before I am watching the Leilani Simon trial. So, all right. See you guys later. Love ya.